leader Chanakya, the planner. So, in his book, he wrote a couple of volumes of book, out of which 15 actually focuses on the strategy of warfare. Now, he being an economist, he being a financial advisor to the king, how is it that he managed to become the strategist for the warfare also? And how did he understand the war without even going himself into the war? But the policies, but the process, and the strategies that he mentioned thousands of years ago are still applicable, are still something which teaches us to work on our present situation. We will draw a conclusion from his teaching in terms of managing competition. See, with the pandemic happening, with the chaos happening around, the competition would be heightened. There would be a lot of production, there would be a lot of excess production, there would be goods and stuffs into the market, but less buyer. So in corporations, the companies, organizations would be competing against each other to have their stock in hand disposed of, to recover the losses which is caused by the pandemic. The strategies that is being followed by the companies are nothing new in compared to the kind of strategies that were discussed by Kautilya, were mentioned by him, and were used by the rulers at that time of India to manage their kingdom. So let's try to understand Kautilya's viewpoint in terms of handling competition. See, whenever there is a competition, we need to understand the advent of technology, the advancement of technology, especially the internet, has opened a new dimension for goods, companies, brands, consumers, customers, and everybody who's into the life cycle. See, those strategic designs wherein only the middlemen were earning the revenue, were getting the major share of the profit, is no more. Every day new brands are coming up, every day they are developing new products, and every product is offering something better than the last product. So how do you, as a competitor or as a producer or as a company, stay in the market, stay in the consumers or the customer's mind? See, there are a lot of theories, we study in School of Management, in Business Management, in our MBAs and others. But the thing is, the core principles or the core policies of operation or handling competitors remains the very, very basic as were in ancient India. Right? Look, the main thing. See, look, the people say, I have a fascination about history. I have a fascination about ancient Indian history and culture. The main thing is, I have found that the kind of problems that we are facing today, the similar kind of problems existed in the old India also. The rulers faced the same kind of problem. There were problems in terms of revolt. There were problems in terms of conspiracies going on, in terms of natural calamities, in terms of being evaded by other rulers and so on. But the conquerors whom we mention in the history managed to handle all this, right? I mean, they did manage to work on the situation and come up and control or rule their country and their people. So coming back to competition, handling competition, we need to understand a couple of very basic points. I mean, there are many points as per Kautilya or ARTHASASHTRA, but what I found most relevant in terms of handling competition in modern days are a couple of points, which is almost 7 to 8 points. The first point is power. See, the power comes from knowledge, and power comes from money. So knowledge is the most powerful tool that one company or the competitor can have to fight the competition. The power of knowledge. Today we are into the digital era, wherein it is not really that difficult to study our competitor, to study sorry, to study the kind of parameters which is working for them, the kind of scenarios which are generating more revenues, the kind of improvement that our competitors are doing in terms of winning the competitor, right? I mean, they are also trying to win over their competitors. So power of knowledge is one of the biggest tool. Today we have so much of analytics going on. We talk about big data, we talk about data mining, we talk about data crunching. So there are so many tools available to even small time business group, or even entrepreneurs, even startup entrepreneurs. Like, for instance, just an example, it's not to be considered as an advertisement for Google. See, the other day I was going through this course on Google Analytics, and literally I was surprised as to how much information, how much powerful tools Google has literally placed on the net for peoples to use, to peoples to understand their business. I mean, those are not paid tools, those are free to have the information. They are giving the training, they are teaching you how to understand data, how to do the data analysis, and so on. See, one startup entrepreneur or a business sole proprietor or our partners can sit down together, can take that training, can go through those tools and implement those in understanding the kind of dynamics which is working for their competitors and how better they can improve. They can do the SWOT analysis and they can come up with the probable solution. See, one solution will not be the final thing. See, it's a constant process. It's like R&D. So the thing is, the more we do the SWOT analysis, the more we do the analysis, or we use the analytical tools and try to understand our competitors, we literally, it's not like overtaking them, we literally come into a process of learning. We literally improve our existing process, we literally improve our products, we literally try to be more focused towards customer experience whenever they are approaching us. So the thing is, learning is the power of knowledge, and power of knowledge is the biggest tool that you can lay your hands on. Now, second point we would like to talk about while handling competition is place. See, considering the place for your product or the service before launching into the market full-fledged is very important. Trying to understand your product in terms of place, right? In terms of place, the kind of products which are required in tropical rainforest are not the same kind of product which are used by the desert peoples, or the people who are into the desert areas. See, you will be finding more buyers of high ankle boots in mountain terrains, or where people have to walk on rocky beds and climb it up and down on the roads of a mountain, rather than very sophisticated handcrafted Italian shoes, right? The kind of shoes that you will find, let's say if you are walking in and around Nepal, or walking in and around near mountainous terrains like Uttarakhand, Himachal, those kind of shoes. Like, even if I take an example of Himachal, okay, in India, see the kind of shoes that I have seen during my visit to Himachal in places like Kazar, Kamik, Langza. These are very rugged mountainous regions, whereas I have seen much availability of designer shoes, nice crafted shoes in Shimla. Now, Shimla is also is a city on the hills only, but the thing is, Shimla provides a lot of place, flat land to walk on. Okay, a lot of flat places to for the people to work on, and a lot of offices, a lot of organizations operating there. So the thing is, the kind of segment of buyer is very different from Shimla to Langza village, or Kaza, or somewhere other places, because there people have to walk on rocks, so high ankle boots to save their ankles from injury is in much demand. So the place of consideration for your product is the second point, which competitors, organizations, and individuals or startup entrepreneurs need to consider to fight competition. Okay, second comes, this is the second point. Third, I would say, comes the time, right? I mean, like, the kind of right now it's summertime, which is going on in India. Okay, so this is the time. Forget about the pandemic, which is happening. Generally, what we used to see is during the summertime, we used to see more advertisement from cold drinks makers, like not naming the brands, but the thing is, there was a huge demand for cold drinks because of the heat, because of the perspiration, because there is a demand for those products. Whereas you will find lesser kind of advertisement or market penetration during the winter time. Okay, similarly, just another comparison, if we may draw. See, the kind of advertisement that you see on the television, or on the web media, or on your WhatsApp, or on the social media, you will find more and more advertisement related to home painting, room painting, and paintings your house and home before the festivals, because that is the time when people are ready to shell out some expenditures in terms of making their house look good, right, in terms of making their rooms look good. So that's the time when you will find a lot of advertisement coming up from brands, big brands like Asian Paints, Berger, and so on. And you will find it's the repetition. The interval of advertisement is also what matters. See, you will find in a day, maybe you will find 20 times Asian Paints. Sorry guys about that. There was a technical hiccup. We had a power failure, so the Wi-Fi went off. I'm sorry about that. See, we were talking about handling competition, following ARTHASASHTRA, the ancient scripture from India. See, as I mentioned in my first part, see, asserting the factors, couple of factors to understand competition is a mandate. First is the power of knowledge. The power. First point is power, under which we understood the importance of knowledge, the money. We understood the place or your specific product or service. We also understood the importance of time, like the kind of paint advertisement comes more frequently during the festive season, more than the regular times. Okay. The fourth point, that any competitor or any organization or a startup entrepreneur, even before starting his journey into this entrepreneurship or business, needs to understand is the fear of revolt in the rear, in the sense like there is always a probability of getting stabbed from the back by your competitors in terms of they entering into your market, they influencing your retailers, your buyers, your customers, and even your internal staff. We always do see, like for instance, I'll draw an example. See, when I was looking into the operations with ICICI Bank, see, ICICI Bank had a very high esteem, or literally an open door policy for anybody who walks in from either any of the banks, or they were from Nestle or Aquaguard and so on. See, the main thing is the banking sector looking for a person from the banking sector only, because it's just that they are not trying to only hire the skills, they're also trying to understand the internal procedure of an organization from an ex-employee. So there is always a fear of being stabbed in the back, as I always say, by competitors in terms of they acquiring your market, they influencing your customer, also your internal customers, that is your employers. So a competitor needs to or a companies need to understand how to keep this in control. Okay, so otherwise they would be persuaded, to follow the competitor. See, it's nothing wrong. It's nothing wrong when it is coming to an employee leaving an organization for an extra pay. But because the thing is, then you need to understand that as an organization, you must have failed to share the same vision. Like other day, we spoke about the employee perspective of looking into scenario. The organization or the employer must have forgotten to look into, the present process of profit making or the whole operation as a whole from the employee's perspective. See, the employer's goal and the organization's goal needs to overlap each other. It cannot be miles apart. I mean, the organization is having one goal, the employer is having another goal. See, there where in the management or the HR team comes in, wherein they can find, it's like that Venn diagram thing, like A union B. So there should be an union of the organizational goal and the employer's goal. Then only the organization grows, because the employer sees his own growth directly proportional, directly related to the growth of the organization. So the thing is, he puts in more effort because he knows when the organization grows, the perks and rewards changes. When the organization grows, the salary structure changes. When the organization grows, the job loyalty possibilities also increases, right? I mean, like I would always like to be associated with an organization which is having a long-term view, because if the long-term view is there, then obviously I'm going to be included in that. So I have a security of a job in that. So that's nothing wrong if an employee is thinking in that perspective. The organization, the employers need to understand that perspective as well, right? Now, see, when we are dealing into business, when we are dealing into products, you cannot be, unless you are making a very unique product. I mean, there is hardly any product which you can call as unique as, like, oh, there is a monopoly for it. There is no monopoly for any product in this today's world, right? So the main thing is, whenever you are making a product, and you will have competitors, you will have somebody who's going to offer better, who's going to offer a lower price, who's going to offer better marketing strategies. So the thing is, there is always a possibility, as I always say, there is always a possibility of loss of manpower, loss of money, loss of resources. I mean, if 10 employees of your moves out of the marketing department, or let's say the finance department, or the sales department, it's a huge loss for an organization. So the organization needs to think about it, incorporate a plan in which you see, you cannot make a foolproof plan. That is true, but the thing is, you need to understand that there is going to be losses, and how you are going to back that up. You should need to have a backup plan. A plan B has to be there, right? As I always say, a plan B always has to be there for you to fulfill that gap which might happen due to the loss, of resources, due to the loss of money, or due to the loss of the time. See, the production hours lost means direct loss to the number of units produced, right? The number of units produced is directly related to the number of sales. Okay, the volume of sales. If the sales is decreasing, obviously the earning of revenue decreases. When the revenue decreases, the company cannot go ahead and give you rewards and recognition and perks even when it's going into a loss, right? I mean, the thing is that obviously the company has its own goal, has its own objective and a vision. Yes, profit making is a vision for the organization, and there is nothing wrong about it, and that's why they are there. Otherwise they would have been doing some other work, right? So losses needs to be considered. A lot of time entrepreneurs or business sole proprietors or partners goes into a business, and they have a strategic plan, they have a wonderful marketing plan, they have a wonderful product also. I have many a times I have seen in startup meets, I have seen wonderful products, very unique, but the thing is, they never are coming up with a plan B for losses. I mean, whenever there is a loss, what I have seen is either their production has to be stopped or the resources have to be let go of, because you cannot be expecting your workers or the people working for you to be working for free. So obviously they have their own family to run on. So the thing is, any kind of loss, the moment that loss happens, nobody has thought about it, nobody has anticipated about it, and they are caught off guard. Like, let's say for instance, this pandemic of COVID-19, why is it causing such an havoc? Apart from the loss of life, what is happening is, it is something which they never ascertained. See, for the organizations or for the companies operating from countries like a small country in like Vietnam is coming up with wonderful results. I mean, there has been mortality rate has come down. There has been less number of infections which is happening past at least last 2 weeks report. And moreover, this country, irrespective of being so small, having a management in place, they are going into production of masks, and they are distributing masks to countries like US and others also. So the thing is, they were able to plan something like this, anticipate something, a kind of outbreak of like a virus outbreak or a war outbreak, or any kind of evils. I mean, this obviously any kind of outbreaks are evil, are wrong. We don't want that to happen. But when that happens, any company or any country or any individual who is caught off guard is thrown into a sea of impossible possibilities, right? I mean, there are so many things happening all around that they cannot come up to the surface, they cannot breathe in. So the loss has to be considered while you're going into a business. That's a one big factor. You have to have a plan B, you have to have a backup to overcome that loss, right? Then comes the main part of expenses. See, expense is that part which will keep the production going on. Expense is that part of a business which will drive the people to work more hard, deliver more, and so on. See, the kind of expenses, whether it's for the resource. See, if you are able to buy more resource, you will be able to make in more units. If you are able to make more units, you will be able to involve more workers, right? If more workers are there, you will be able to spread across, you will be able to acquire new factories and new places to work and bigger places to work. See, that's how the growth is. So the more expenses goes on, there are expenses which can be forecasted, which can be thought about in but the other thing is, expense is also something which shoots up once the production goes in. I mean, like many a times I've seen they have put a certain budget in expenses, but when the production starts, it goes off the grid, and the production ultimately stops, because they say that we plan for lot of expense of this amount, but it has crossed that, so we cannot go ahead unless there is sales happening. The main thing is, today's market is such that you have to constantly bombard it or constantly supply your product. Otherwise, somebody delves in, somebody dives into your market, cuts a good niche out of it, and the more the cutting is happening, it's like an eroding of your existing market, right? So guys, you have to consider a major part is the loss. You have to consider beforehand as a backup. Expense also, you need to understand how to carry on with the daily expenditures of overhead expenditures, of resource expenditures, and so on, and how to have that fund flowing. You need to have a plan for that also, right? Also, when we are talking about loss, expenditures, and so on, we need to talk about the gain also. That is the main point why you are into the business, right? I mean, the gain part is, you need to decide how much is going to be enough for a certain time. You cannot be expecting 100% profit on the very first year or second year or third year of your business incorporation. It never happens. It takes, normally I have seen through my studies and even through my startup also, I have seen for a startup or for a business to have a hold into the market, it needs, I mean, irrespective of you having the fund, resources and everything, whatever. See, to create a market for you, it needs at least 5 to 7 years, right? I mean, that's when you look at it, it makes you feel like 5 to 7 years, but when you are into the